Okay, so we are now recording the episode. Okay, so welcome back to the show. I wasn't recording, now I am. Okay, so the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. 15 years of research here in Phoenix, Arizona. Not only doing investigations on the petroglyphs that connect the sightings, the UFO sightings in Phoenix, Arizona, but also the lost history of Phoenix, Arizona that hasn't been talked about in 80 years. And yeah, so lots of cool photographs in there. And the book talks about it's like a story, and it goes back in time and it tells you on who carved these petroglyphs, what happened to the Hohokam Indians, what the petroglyphs actually mean, and what the lost history of Phoenix consists of. This is information that's not told by the city archaeologist. Matter of fact, this city archaeologist wants to bury this story, and they do a pretty good job of doing it. And in doing so, they might have got away with it because I hid all this information in a library folder for 80 years, and I accidentally stumbled across it. And yeah, so this is all proven facts. I'm not saying anything that has been said before. I'm just bringing this information back that has been covered up for 80 years. Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. Find it on eBay, Barnes & Noble, and eBooks. Okay. Let's get this party started. All right, let's talk about these petroglyphs out here. So these petroglyphs are located out there on South Mountain. And so yeah, we're just going to go a little bit into this. And these were carved by the Hohokam Indians. Hohokam is a Pima word for the people who are gone, the people who are missing, the people who got taken away, because we don't know exactly what happened to these people. The archaeologist wants us to believe they simply migrated somewhere else. They lived here in the Valley of the Sun for over 1,000 years. They were peace-loving people who made canal systems and never went to war with anybody. And yet they just simply one day came up missing with no trace of where they went. Archaeologists wants us to believe they vanished. They walked away from this area. They migrated somewhere else because of drought, but we have no evidence on where they went. The petroglyphs and the oral traditions from the Native Americans tell us a different story on what happened to these people who witnessed the Phoenix Lights before us, who recorded their UFO sightings on the mountains around the Valley of the Sun. And yes, that's exactly what these petroglyphs are depicting. In investigating these glyphs for 15 to 17 years or so and continue to this day, I discovered that these petroglyphs are in fact telling us a written story of the Hohokam people on special events that took place. And this is one of them. So this petroglyph here, it's talking about, let's look at this real carefully here. So we know that the spirals, and we can see a spiral petroglyph like right in here. We can see the spirals. So spirals are a symbol for doorways. Doorways into the stone. Yeah, into the stone. Doorways into the underworld. Now, when I first learned all this, the Native American shaman who was teaching me all these petroglyphs, the meanings and interpretations and how to understand the rock art, he was explaining to me that these spirals are doorways into the underworld. It's like looking down into a tunnel. The spiral is a tunnel. So the symbol of the spiral is a doorway. Now, most of the time, the spiral will end at a crack in the stone. Now, that crack in the stone is the emergence point, is the doorway. Now, when I was up there investigating the glyphs and was being taught how to understand the petroglyphs, at that time, I was still thinking, spaceships, technology, nuts and bolts technology, stuff like that. So when he was telling me that it's an emergence point, it's the doorway to the underworld through that little crack in the rock, I'm like, dude, how can a big spaceship, flying saucer, flying craft get into a little crack like that? I just didn't understand it, until I actually witnessed what was going on here. And I soon realized that what we are seeing in the skies today are not nuts and bolts crafts, but another living being, another life form. Now, the Native Americans, they've been telling us all these years, man, for centuries, that these things are shapeshifters, right? And that's what these petroglyphs are depicting. They're depicting what the archaeologists likes to call anthropomorphs, shape shifting. And that's what these beings are doing. That's what we see in the skies today. They're shape shifting. Sometimes they look like animals. Sometimes they look like, the feathered god, the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl, and things like that. And this is exactly what we are seeing out here on the rocks in Phoenix, Arizona. They are sacred scrolls. These mountains around this Valley of the Sun are sacred scrolls and are talking about the lost history, the true history of Phoenix, Arizona, and what they recorded, what they dealt with in their lifetime. And they are carving these stories here on the mountains. Now, the spirals, here we go again. Now, the spiral here, look at this. So we can see a spiral. Now, see this crack here? See this opening in the boulder? Now, look how the spiral has been carved like in the crack. See that? Let's examine this a little bit further here. Let's open this up. Look at that there. See? This is what I'm talking about. So the emergence point, the doorway to the underworld is right here where this spiral is talking about. Sometimes the petroglyphs, they interact with the boulder. Exactly what's going on here. And so these spirals, sometimes when the spirals are going clockwise, it's a doorway in. When a spiral is going counterclockwise, it's a doorway out. And when the spiral is ending down, 9 times out of 10, it's facing this crack in the stone here, as we're looking at right here. It's telling us that is the emergence point. That's the doorway, is that crack in the stone. When the spiral is ending up, there is a vortex. There is a doorway in the sky. That's when these lights just magically appear in the sky, right? We've all seen this. We know, what they do when they just magically appear in the sky out of nowhere, right? They're coming in through a doorway. They're coming in through a vortex. That's exactly what the Native American was teaching me here. They're coming in through a doorway. Now, it's interesting. It's way cool. Now, some of you can go back and look at my videos, and you can see on how these things come out of the sky, and they're solid, right? They're solid. Now they're shape-shifting, right? They're shape-shifting. Sometimes they change color, this and that. Sometimes they look like animals. Sometimes they want to look like people. Sometimes they look like snakes. Diamonds, orbs, right? And this is just the beginning. These orbs that we see in the sky, this is just the beginning. There is more to that orb. They just haven't really revealed themselves too much to the public yet. And that is what's to come. That is the second stage. First stage, we see them in the sky. We know they're here. Second stage, hold on to your hats, folks. Second stage of these orbs, they're going to transform. They're going to shape-shift. They're going to anthropomorph, as what the archaeologists like to call these beings. They anthropomorph. They're going to shape-shift. They're going to morph. I've seen this. I've seen this over South Mountain. It's what the petroglyphs talk about. We're going to go into this here in a minute. These orbs are going to shape-shift. They're going to change. That is the next phase. That is the next story. That is the next step in these orbs we see in the sky, in these light orbs, in the Phoenix lights, stuff like this. Spaceships are cool. Why not? I've seen some things in the sky that could resemble a craft. But I think what the majority of the public is witnessing, and what we can prove, not only from the testimony from the Native Americans and their written carvings here, and what they're telling us, because these petroglyphs are meant for us. We are seeing these things in the skies today. These petroglyphs are meant for our generation to understand what we are looking at in the sky. Not just somebody's interpretation of what this is, but exactly what the history involves here. When you ask Mother Earth about these lights, about the Phoenix lights, about the UFOs in the sky, Mother Earth will tell you this is nothing new. These things in the sky, these beings, have always been here. And another little secret, little cover-up, They're not from another planet. This is their world also. They have always been here among us. A lot of people think, well, they're coming from Alpha Centauri. They're coming from Mars. They're coming from Venus, this and that. But the history, when you examine the history and what the petroglyphs are talking about, and you talk to the people whose ancestors interacted with these beings, they're going to tell you a completely different story. The ones who want to talk to you anyway, because this is like secret stuff. This is like taboo stuff. And they will tell you that these beings have always been here. Mother Earth will tell you, these lights in the sky, these things that we see, this is nothing new. They've always been with us. And so the Hohokam Indians are telling us what is going on here in our skies and with these carvings to understand what's going on. So let's look at the spiral. See how the spiral is interacting with this crack in the stone. This is the doorway into the underworld. Now, that's what the Native Americans say. They're saying that they're going down into the underworld. The Aztecs, the Mayans, the Incas, all these traditions, we know this, that they're going down into the underworld. Now, on a scientific level, on a scientific analysis, why? Let's look at it. Let's look at the picture here. Why in some places are UFOs mostly attracted to? Why is that? You know, why Phoenix, right? Why South Mountain in Phoenix, Arizona? Formerly known by the Hohokam Indians as Mount Sapoa, Mountain of Mercy. Now we call it South Mountain. So why are these Phoenix lights, why are these UFOs, these creatures attracted to this mountain here? What makes this mountain so special? I'm going to tell you the answer right here. It has everything to do with below the mountain and what created the mountain. In history, when we look, when we examine all these sacred scrolls and documents and all these holy places, right? It's mountains, man. Mountains are the key, is the source. No wonder the Native Americans get so upset when someone wants to go in and start blowing up a sacred mountain. You can't do that, man, because that's where the spirits are. That's where these creatures are. That's where they dwell at. And why? Why are they coming to this mountain? It's because of the fault line. It's the energy that the mountain is sitting on top of. It's the fault line. South Mountain is sitting on a major fault line. And as a matter of fact, there's a power plant in Phoenix, Arizona off of Ray Road on east side of South Mountain that's bored down into that fault line mountain, into that fault line energy source. And the power plant is drawing off of that energy, off of that mountain, off that power, off that fault line. And it just so happens that in 2004, I was witnessing the Phoenix lights hanging over that power plant off of Ray Road. Look at some of my sightings back in the day, 2004, 2005. Especially in the summer of 2004, man. Those Phoenix lights, boy, they were there, sucking up that energy, man. And they come in a pattern. They come through the seasons. This is why the sun is so significant in all of this. All these native tribes all over the world, the sun is so important. Not only to, for crops and for life and things like that, but also on how to track these beings, on when these creatures will return in that area. They follow the seasons. It's a pattern. The first time I was sitting out there on South Mountain for like this whole year on the east side, I watched these things come and go. I noticed the sun's pattern. I watched the light and shadow markers of the equinox and the solstice that the Hohokams has left behind. All of this is in my book. You can check it out. And I noticed that some months they were here, other months they were gone. There might be a couple, one or two hanging around, but mostly during the equinox, before that equinox, they were heavy, man. There was a lot of UFO activity out there. And then after the equinox, they were gone. They went somewhere else. Sun came back around for the solstice. Here they come again. So they're tracking the sun. They're following the sun. When the sun gets in the right position of these fault line energies around the earth, that's when these creatures are attracted, these beings, the phoenix lights, the Quetzalcoatl, the flying serpent, the orbs, the flying diamonds, all these weird things we see in the sky, right? They're tracking the sun. They're following the sun over these fault line energies. Now, when the sun gets in the right position of the fault lines over these spiral doorways, it opens up the doorway. It causes a type of fusion effect. The door is open. The spirits come down. They go down into the underworld. They go down into that fault line. When the sun leaves during the equinox, during after that equinox or after that solstice, it all depends on where you're at. It depends on where you're at around the earth, around the world, because it's a pattern. And once you figure out that pattern, where you live at, then you can figure out, when they're going to return. In Phoenix, Arizona, January, February, March, April, May, June, July is like the hot times. November, October, December, all the way up until December 21st, we're getting ready to have. They're here. The Phoenix Lights are here. They're here now. These creatures are here. After this September or December 21st, they'll be back. They'll be back the following equinox. It's a pattern. Once I saw this going the first year, they were here these months, they were gone these months, they came back these months, they were gone those months, blah, blah. The second year, it repeated itself, man. The third year, it repeated itself. That's how, and this has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. This is nothing new. This is how to track these beings in your area. It varies on where you live around the world. Like if you're in Japan or something, or Florida, it's going to be a different pattern because the sun's in a different, the time zones and positions of the sun, everything is different. So once you figure out the pattern in your area, then you can figure out when they're going to go back. And the secret, the source is these mountains with spirals. Okay, let's look at it. So the spiral is going into the stone there. And we see an orb here. We have an orb, and we know it's not a spiral because it's not connected like this one is. See how this is connected? This one isn't. So this one is telling it's either a light, like pulsating, and it has a dot in the middle. Now here we have some people here. Look at this guy here, and he's got like a tail. We'll go into this later. But look at this. See how their arms are down? You see how their arms are down? Look at that. And studying the glyphs out here on South Mountain and finding the tombs, yes, I said tombs. There are tombs out here in the Valley of the Sun, especially on South Mountain. This is the reason why, because I get a lot of people emailing me all the time, asking me about these tombs. Well, how come we don't go out there and dig it up? Has anybody gone over there and dig it up? Man, the government's on top of this, folks. All right, they made that mountain a government park. So you go in there and start taking things off the mountain, you're going to get in trouble, dude. You can't go in there and start digging stuff up because they know the tombs are there. The first park ranger, Charles Hulbert, back in the early 1930s, he knew the tombs were there. The Native Americans at that time instructed him to protect these tombs. Matter of fact, there's a book that was written on how he was protecting the tombs on South Mountain and chasing people away from these gold tombs. So yeah, and in a way, Charles, he had this little brochure that he handed out to people, and you can find this on my website, and it talks about how the old cons were here and the tombs and the gold and all this stuff. All that's on my in my website. And so you go on there and start messing around with stuff. You go on there and start digging up stuff, you're gonna get in trouble. But I do think. Now, part of the folklore, part of the legend here of these tombs and the Phoenix Lights that I dug up is that these Phoenix Lights, these creatures, are actually protecting, they're guarding what's inside these tombs. That's another secret. Because let's go back. Let's go back in history. Let's go back a little bit to understand this legend. So when the Hohokams first arrived here, they didn't know how to live, right? And pretty much they followed the lights to this area. They probably followed the lights out of Mexico. And, at that time, part of Arizona was Mexico, right? So no wonder, it's only obvious, the Mayans were here along with the Hohokams. And a lot of people think that the Hohokams were the Mayans themselves, and it's very possible. I mean, I find Mayan art out there along with Hohokam art, so yes, there's a lot of, different tribes that were here in this Valley of the Sun. So I'm thinking, because I did the same thing. In 2004, I saw the lights, and I followed the lights to South Mountain. And I think that's how the Hohokam people arrived in this valley, is they followed the lights. They followed the lights to the energy source, right? To the sacred mountain. And they went a step further. They went on to step 2 and step 3, where these orbs, these phoenix lights, these lights in the sky came down, and they shape-shifted, stage 2. Stage 2, they shape-shifted into the likeness of a person. Stage 3, they interacted with the Hohokam. And they taught the Hohokam people the secret ways, the secret incantations, right? In which man was not meant to understand. This went on for 1,000 years. In return, the Hohokam people treated these beings as gods. Yes, they would perform sacrifice. Everything you see in the Mayan culture, in the Mexican culture, as far as the Aztec pyramids and the sacrifice, all that stuff was here too, man. Same stuff was going on here in Phoenix. Sacrificing. Gold idols. Charles Holbrook describes on how many tribes from around the country used to gather here in this Valley of the Sun. And he went on to say, a handful of corn for a handful of gold. He wrote all this stuff in his journals. Why would the first park ranger talk about this, right? And in my past shows, I talk about how Charles Holbrook was a respected authority in the park ranger field. Not only did I find information here in the government department in Phoenix, but also in other libraries in California and Utah and New Mexico. So he just wasn't a custodian. He just wasn't a park ranger in Phoenix, but his stuff traveled all over the west coast of the United States. There's stuff and there's stuff that's sealed up that I can't even get to on Charles Holbrook. I can't get to some of those files because those files are locked away, completely out of public view. They don't want you to know anything, because Charles Holbrook, man, he really did it. He discovered a lot of stuff, and he learned all this stuff from the Native Americans who were living with him at that time and told him about the tombs. So they were here for 1,000 years, and all of a sudden they disappeared. Some say that a meteor came from the east and wiped the people out. Others say that the devil came from the east and took these people away. Now, this coincides with the petroglyphs that I'm finding out here. I'm finding these petroglyphs are talking about the phoenix lights, the Quetzalcoatl, the orbs, the diamonds, all this crazy stuff. We're taking people up into the sky and never to return. They took these people away. The Pimas called these people the Hohokam, the people who got taken away. Like I said before, the archaeologists, they want us to believe they simply migrated somewhere else with no trace. I mean, even when you and I move, we take our belongings with us. Yet the Hohokam didn't. They left all their belongings behind and simply vanished. This makes no sense. We could find on where they went. Oral traditions, the petroglyphs talk about how the phoenix lights and all these things that we see in the sky had something to do with not only Hohokam tribe disappearing, but also all these other tribes around the world that came up missing at the same time. That's exactly what happened here. That's what Holberg talks about. He learned it from the first, natives here. And that's what the petroglyphs talk about, right? So, and when this happened, and it was because the sacrificing had stopped. Remember I was talking about sacrificing? Yes, I found altars up there. You can see the altars in my book on my webpage too, I believe. And so for some reason, and we haven't figured out why, the sacrificing stopped. So, back then it wasn't a dried up desert as it is now, right? It was a tropical-like landscape. There was plenty of water. And I find evidence of water all over Phoenix, man. It wasn't a dried up desert like it is today. I mean, not only were the Hohokam building canals there, but I found, evidence of water, of weathering high up on mountains, man. And I found seashells, So yeah, there was a lot of water here, and it wasn't dried up. We can see the dried up waterfalls on South Mountain. I mean, beautiful waterfalls. They're not there anymore. They all got dried up. Why? The legends say that the spirits got upset because the sacrificing stopped. And when that did, it put a curse on this land and it dried up. Everything was starting to dry up and die. And the villagers at that time were yelling at their leaders, "Why did you stop the sacrifice? You have upsetted the spirits. You have upsetted our gods. Look what is going on. Everything is dying. The water had stopped. There's no food in the land. Why did you stop the sacrifice?" The legend goes on to say that out of the blue, the devil came from the east and took these people away as punishment? Or was it a type of rapture? It's interesting too, because in 1 Thessalonians, I was the first one to talk about this stuff, in the Phoenix Lights and all this stuff. And I was the first one to bring this to the attention of a lot of these scholars out here, a lot of these UFO people, that 1 Thessalonians says that we will be caught up, right? And we will be caught up to be judged, right? It doesn't say how. It just says we will be caught up. And the key words is caught up. So when we look at the Hohokam people and we look at the petroglyphs and we see on how they were caught up, they were caught by the lights, they were caught by the serpents, they were caught by the orbs in the sky, and they were taken away up into the sky, never to return. Was that a type of rapture for them? It's very possible. History sometimes repeats itself. And this is one of the big reasons why they will never come out with disclosure. I don't care what anybody else says. They may think they're going to come out and tell you, but it's a scary thing, man. These UFOs we see in the sky, it's, in my opinion, in studying the history of these beings, it's a scary thing, man. They're not here to help us. They're here to conquer us, man. Just like what happened. And just like what happened in the beginning. I was going down this one road. I was walking down this path. I was thinking aliens and technology and crafts and here to help us. And this is such an awesome, great thing, what's going on in our skies. But the more and more I looked at the evidence, not just hearsay, what somebody wants me to believe, but what I can prove. What the history says about these beings in the sky. It was taking me down another road, another path. All the evidence was taking me down this journey, and I'm like, the more and more I walked on this path of credibility, I did a completely 180 on this whole UFO thing, man. And the evidence was just overwhelming. The more and more I looked, the more and more I was like, dude, what the hell, man? Right? You know, because we were meant to believe this other journey path. But when you really look into it, as much as I have, when you've been out on the field, when you go out there and you hike on the mountains for years, I've hiked on these mountains for years, man. And you understand the petroglyphs and you understand the traditions and you find all this stuff that was covered up that we're not supposed to know about, right? It's just overwhelming and it's just. And so, you know, when I first discovered this, you know, in 2006 it was, 2005, 2006, when my eyes were open to the truth, not hearsay, not someone telling me, you know, what they think it is, but the credible evidence, man. I started going to some of these other, you know, supposed UFO researchers, and I'm like, dude, look at the evidence here. They don't want to hear it. Not at that time. Even when I was doing the UFO Hunter show on the History Channel, they're telling me, Jeff, you're filming some bizarre stuff, and you know the public isn't ready for this. If you're going to talk about these beings, you have to say crass. He says the public isn't ready for this. That was in 2007. And I'm thinking to myself, man, the public better get ready because that's what's really here. You know, because no one has actually taken the time and dedicated themselves as much as I did here in Phoenix, Arizona, to find out what the Phoenix Lights really is. And I did. I found it, and I'm scared. It's a scary thing, and that's the reason why they're not going to tell you about this. That's why when Holberg died in the late 40s, they buried all his information. That's why you don't know about the tombs out there. That's why you don't hardly even know about Charles Holberg. That's why you don't know anything about this. They're only telling you what they want you to believe, what they want you, not what the evidence is telling. They're covering that up, and they made that mountain a government mountain. So you go up there and start digging up these tombs, you get in trouble. That's it. It all makes sense now, right? So I'm bringing back this information. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before. This isn't my opinion. This isn't my theory. This is stuff that's always been with us. This is stuff that has always been here. It's been covered up, not talked about in 80 years. I found the stuff out there on the mountains. I found the work covered in a folder in Phoenix in the library. I found all this evidence. This is credible stuff. Not hearsay. It's what can be proven. So, back to our story. So they were taken away, and the people were watching what was going on, and some of them were smart, and they hid in caves, and they watched their people being taken away up into the sky, carried off into the sky. They witnessed all this crazy stuff. And when it was all over with, some of the leaders were still there, and the people ran up to the leaders. Why did you stop the sacrifice? Why? Look what happened to our people. And the leaders knew that it was wrong to stop the sacrifice, so they committed suicide on the sacrificing tables. And while the rest of the people who were hid, they vowed never to come into this valley again. They cursed this valley. They cursed Phoenix, Arizona. They knew that eventually, if they were going to continue to live in this valley, that eventually they would have to go back to war with these spirits of the earth and sky. So they buried the gold. And Charles Holberg writes in his journals, in my website, you can look at what he writes. He tells you that the gold is as tall as high as the tallest saguaro cactus and as round as the sun. That's a lot of gold, man. There's a lot of gold buried on South Mountain. They buried all these tombs. They buried them in these tombs around South Mountain. And they vowed never to come back into this valley. And they went back to their homeland. They went back to Mexico. And nobody lived in this valley. It was a cursed valley. There were tribes on the outskirts, and they saw the lights, they saw the orbs, they saw the things, and they knew. They were afraid. They knew what it all meant, what they were, because of their ancestors. Their ancestors told them from generation to generation to generation. This has been going on. And some of the petroglyphs has been recarved to keep that story alive. This is what happened. We need to learn from the past. If we're going to understand our future, we must understand our past. And when it comes to these UFOs, and it comes to what we see in the skies today, what does that say about our future? If this is what happened to the holocoms when they interacted with the Phoenix Lights, when they interacted with Quetzalcoatl, when they interacted with these orbs, they came up missing. So what does that say about our future? And more and more and more and more are coming. We're seeing a lot of them lately, especially when man goes to war with each other. Oh my God, look at World War II. I mean, they were chasing around the Foo Fighters, right? They're chasing around these red lights everywhere. Every time there's like a major war, these creatures, these lights, these UFOs are there. And they're waiting. They're waiting for mankind to need them once again. They don't know when it's all going to happen. Only the great creator knows. The great spirit, he knows when it's all going to go down. But these beings in the sky now, they don't know. They see all the stuff that has been, I don't want to go into like prophecy and stuff like that, but they see all this stuff happening, and they know it's getting closer and closer and closer, when eventually mankind will need these beings, like the Holcomb Indians in Phoenix, Arizona, need these beings to survive. This is what it's all about. Look at the history. Examine the facts. Examine what I'm talking about. Examine the photographs I'm bringing down from South Mountain. Look at the stuff I've dug up here in the Phoenix Library in a folder that's been covered up for 80 years. Look at my website. So they're gone. The Holcomb people left. And the story goes on to say that the lights, the Phoenix Lights, the orbs, everything else, the diamonds, the shapeshifters, the anthropomorphs, they're guarding. They're watching the tombs. Because the story goes on to say that eventually the Mayans are going to come back and reclaim the gold. That's probably one of the reasons why, the government locked up that mountain. Because we start going in there and digging up stuff and bringing stuff out, it's going to alarm the lights. It's going to alarm these beings. And so they're trying to keep that, concealed as long as they can. Because you go in there and start bringing out these sacred objects, and who knows what all else is buried in there. You bring these sacred objects out into the sunlight after 1,000 years, it's going to cause up some stuff. Not only will it totally rewrite what the archaeologist history wants you to believe, but it also might disturb the lights. So, back to the petroglyph here. Look how the arms are down. Most of the time when we see the men, the stick figure men, the hands are up. They're in the appeasement pose. They're looking up. Their hands are up. But these hands are down. See that? And every time that I saw that, resembles death. And so there's something buried there, possible a graveyard. Okay, let's move on. Here we go here. Here we have a serpent UFO. Now, like I said before, the archaeologists, they call these things anthropomorphs because they're shape-shifting. They're changing shape. But also a spiral. Look at this here. So they're telling us, in order to understand this inscription, this petroglyph here, this marking, it's telling us that not only is there a doorway in, right, because it's a spiral, right, and it's connecting to a doorway, out. It's going counterclockwise. See that? So it's two doorways. It's a doorway in. It's a doorway out for the serpent, for the feathered serpent, for the Quetzalcoatl. See that? And I can tell you that these flying serpents, not only in Mexico, but here also, and I can tell you, I have filmed the flying serpent in Phoenix many, 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 many times. And he's alive and well, and he's flying around in our skies. He's back. The flying serpent is back. I have seen him. I have filmed him. Those of you who have been following me all these 20 years understand this. Now look at this glyph here. Okay, so some of the petroglyphs depict what the archaeologist calls anthropomorphs, shape shifting. Now look at this. Now one way we can determine on how to understand what an anthropomorph is. Let me get my arrow up here real quick. There we go. Oh, what happened? Something happened. We did something. Yeah, my arrow's just not coming up. I don't know why. It should move up. There we go. Okay. So they shape shift. Right now, they like to look like animals. And they look like humans and snakes and diamonds and stuff. Now look at this. Look at this animal here. Look at the feet. See how the feet is going different directions? A lot of people don't realize this. They might think, well, it's just like a lizard, right? But the feet are different directions. This is a giveaway. This is the secret here. This is not a regular animal. This is an anthropomorph. This is a shapeshifter. And he's resembling a lizard or some kind of animal. Now look at this. See, we have like this type of spiral here. And then we have this thing up here. See this? This is one of those UFOs. This is one of those creatures also. And it's in the sky. You see this? This is what we're dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. So I've been all over South Mountain. I've been all over the mountains around Phoenix. I've been on all of them, where all the petroglyphs are located at. And I have not once found anything to resemble a spaceship, a craft, or any of this. I haven't found any evidence of spaceships. Spaceships are cool. I agree with it. But I think what the majority of the public is seeing in the sky, these orbs and lights, is living beings. You see 5 lights out there? You're not looking at 5 crafts. There's not a little guy inside that light. You're looking at the being itself. That UFO, that entity, that orb, that light, that long cigar-looking thing, that is alive. That is a living being. No technology at all. There's nobody inside that. That is the creature. That is the being. And this is what this petroglyph is talking about. This is an anthropomorph, and you can see the way his arm or his legs are going in different directions. This is up on South Mountain. And you can see Phoenix in the background there. This is Phoenix. This is up on a hill. That's part of that. This is part of South Mountain over here also. This is on this rock is high up on a hill on Holbert Trail. So I mean they talk about Holbert. I mean they dedicated a trail, Holbert Trail, and they dedicated his lookout, Holbert's Lookout. But that's about it. That's about as far as they go. They don't tell you what he was doing. He was guarding the gold. And he was finding the 4 crosses left by the Spanish conquistadors. He was looking for the Padre Cave, where the ghost is said to have be guarding, and all this fascinating stuff that he was doing, and they're burying it, they're concealing all of it, and all they want you to know today, 80 years later, is there is the first park ranger, Charles Holbrook. We dedicated his hill, we made a trail after him, and he was a great guy, and that's it. That's as far as they want you to know. And his story, what he was doing, is talking about the Mayans and the sacrificing and the gold and the tombs and the spirits of the earth and sky buried away for 80 years. All right, let's look at this now. Now this is trippy. So these rocks right here, these petroglyphs here, let's start off with this one over here. Let's get this arrow out of here for a minute. Now look at this. Every time I see this type of symbol, this is a sun marker. All right, this is a light and shadow marker. This is an equinox or solstice marker. Now the sun, so this is pointing west. We're looking west right now. It's oriented to the west. So the sun during the equinox, the sun will come down, the sunset will come down right through here and align with these petroglyphs here. See that? This is a solstice marker. This lizard-looking guy here. That's a solstice marker. And you can find out more information on my book about this. But the sun will set right here during the equinox. Boop. Now look at this over here. Let's look at this glyph right here. This one's kind of scary. Remember how I was telling you on what happened to the people and how there's petroglyphs that talk about this? Let's blow it up more. Let's get a great big view of this glyph. Now look at this. Let's start right here. Here we see a man's legs. Here we see a man's body. Here we see his legs there, or I'm sorry, his arms. Now there's his head. See that? So, and like I said before, his arms are down, meaning death. This man is dead. His arms are down. And look what's grabbing him. See this here? Look at this. A lot of people call this a tic-tac UFO. Now look at this over here. See this? It's a very faint one. See that line there too? See that? See how the artists, they carved this one very faintly, but they carved this one very darkly? They carved it heavy? And it's telling you, earlier in past shows, I talk about how when these beings come down on the mountain, and when they go into the mountain, they're solid. And then when they start getting closer to the mountain, they turn into a ghost, right? You can see through them. I understand why the natives call them spirits, because they look like a spirit. You can see through them. They're ghosts. These things don't make any noise. These things don't cast any shadows. They absorb themselves into the rock. They're solid, and then they're a ghost, and then they're gone. And that's exactly what this petroglyph is talking about. It's a ghost, right? It's a spirit form, right? It's a ghost. And now he's solid. See that? So he's telling us when he first came into our dimension, when he first came in, he had this line, and now he's more solid, and he's taken a man away. See that? He's taking a Hohokam Indian away. Here's another example here. Here we have a head, the arms. It's very hard to see, and the legs. And we have another UFO entity here picking this guy up by his head and carrying him off into the sky. See that? This is the stuff that I'm talking about. Well, once you understand the petroglyphs and you understand the Hohokam Indians and you know the way they interpret things, the way they drew things, the way they told their stories, and once you know understand the skies, because they were sky watchers, they watched the sun, right? You know, and they track the sun and they follow the beings here. They tell you, oh yeah, here's another sun marker here. See that? And again, it'll align with another equinox or solstice here. So we have this one over here for the sunset, and then we have this one because the sun changes, right? The sun moves from season to season, right? So here's another one that aligns with the sun. See that? Okay. Let's move on. Got a lot of stuff to cover tonight. I've talked about this one in past shows, but I always like to talk about it because it's really cool. So this petroglyph is located on Box Hill. I'm sorry, Box Canyon on South Mountain. And that's a really cool petroglyph hike. It goes further back, and it's on this like dried up wash. But there's a lot of neat petroglyphs here. And look at this rock here. You see this? Let's examine the way this rock is real quick. Let's move this over here so we can get a better look at this. You see this? This boulder is out of place. And it's like some kind of like prehistoric concrete. I don't know, but it's sealed up. Look at that. And you can tell, you can see the crack here, the opening, and then the boulder has been cut. See that? All down through here. So this boulder actually will come out. If you chisel that boulder out, it'll come out. There is something behind here. My whole point is, and you can tell this up here. Look at this. See the crack? So we need to chisel this boulder out. There is something behind this boulder. Now, this right here is interesting. The petroglyph, remember how I was telling you that the orbs is just the beginning? So they will anthropomorph. They will change. They will shape shift. And this orb, see the belly? First it's an orb. Right? Now he's growing legs. See that? The orb is changing. Right? And then we have another orb up here for his head. But again, the arms are down. Right? So it's telling us that something is buried here. And they're using these orbs as a type of protection, maybe. A giant? Yes, there's giants. There was once giants in Phoenix. I found evidence of big, huge walls constructed by somebody big. There's evidence, there's legends and petroglyphs more of giants here on South Mountain, and I've discovered so many things to suggest that somebody very big and powerful was here on the mountain and constructing these huge walls and huge bricks to make these walls and cover up some of these tombs, these huge boulders in front of these entrances of the tombs. And only someone very huge and very big and powerful could have picked up those boulders and put it there. So that could be what it's talking about. Is there a giant buried under there? Could be. Could be. So the swastika has always been around. And this is on Holberg Trail. And we can see a coyote. and the swastika is above his head. So a lot of religions say that the swastika is good luck. Only Hitler, the Nazi regime made that symbol evil or satanic or whatever you want to call it. But the swastika originally came from the sky, and that's exactly what is depicting here. So this coyote is looking at a UFO swastika in the sky. That's exactly where this symbol originated from. Was seen from the sky. It was originally a UFO to us, a spirit of the earth and sky to the tribes. So it's not, only Hitler made it a symbol of evil. Here we go again. Look at this again. Now look, see how the arms are down? Look at this glyph here. Let's move it over. Whoop. Move it over. Look at that. See, so we have an orb. Arms are down. Got the tail. We all know what that tail is for. The orb, and then the arms are down, and then something is above his head. So, and that's telling me that there could be, another concealed tomb or possibly a burial ground. And yes, there's a lot of burial grounds there on South Mountain, and especially around the east side. So when you look at South Mountain on Google Earth, and especially the east side of the mountain there, you'll see a lot of golf courses. Well, the government came in and turned those burial grounds into golf courses. And Rustler's Roost, there's a Rustler's Roost up on South Mountain on the east side, and that is, when all this was being constructed, the Native Americans were pissed. They were protesting, they were cursing the golf players and the people who were going to play on their ancient ground. And there's apartments there. It's all oriented on the east side. Of course, it's on the east side. That's where the morning sunrise comes. On the east side, it's very sacred. Always to the natives, the east is always sacred. And yes, they're gonna bury their dead, on the east side of a sacred mountain. Well, when the government came in, they turned all this burial grounds into golf courses and restaurants and apartment buildings and houses. And so they covered this up. I found this again in that folder. And they actually, so the golf courses, I don't know if they actually removed the bodies or not. I don't know if they actually removed the bodies when they were building the apartment complexes on top of them. But I do know that on the east side of Central, on South Mountain, there's like this huge dugout hole, and it's like a few miles. It's about a mile long. On Holbrook, you can see it from Holbrook Trail when you look north on the trail. You look north and you see this big gap in the ground there. Well, they came in there and removed. They removed the bodies. They removed that cemetery there. And I don't know if they removed the rest of them, but I do know there's golf courses and houses and apartments and Rustler's Roost. And it was a big deal, man. It was a big deal when those things were being constructed, and it was, yeah. So, and that's a big secret that nobody knows about. And there was I think the original owner's daughter, I think, owns the Rustler's Roost today. And so I wanted to go in and interview her, right? I wanted to go in and get her take on, what was going on when they were building Rustler's Roost there on South Mountain, because they were blowing up the rocks, because the east side of South Mountain used to extend a lot further than what it is now. They blew up about a quarter of a mile of that mountain on the east side, um, so they can make the restaurant and the houses and stuff like that. So the mountain comes as like a point, and they destroyed all that. And I wanted to interview her and get her take, on how things were going when when the natives were there protesting and picketing the construction workers and cursing the golf players for playing on ancient burial grounds. And they don't want to talk to me. Yeah, they would have stir up that bucket of worms anymore. But I did try, and maybe one of these days someone will go up there and talk to her about what was going on. But yeah, she don't want to talk to me. Nope. Do not want to talk to me. Okay, this is on Holbrook Trail, this petroglyph. Now look at this. So this is interesting too because it's oriented towards the sky, right? So it's a boulder. It's pretty big boulder, and it's oriented up into the sky. Okay, so and the artist wants us to tell us, is explaining that all this stuff was seen in the sky. We got the serpent here with the doorways, see that? And then we got the diamond here, and he's anthropomorphing into a lizard, right? We have an orb there. We have another. This is a pitchfork, and we all know in my past shows how I'm worried about those pitchforks, and we'll talk about those a little bit later. But I talk about those in my past shows. Then we have a man here. Okay, it looks like an N or whatever, an O. But yeah, then we have a man here. His hands are up in the appeasement pose. See that? And it's all oriented up. So the artist is telling you this is what happened in the sky right here because it's oriented. He carved it on top of a boulder facing towards the sky. So he's telling us that all this stuff was seen right here in this area. Oh yeah, and then over here, the photograph kind of cuts it off, but we can see like a barbell here. See that? You can see like a barbell. Lots of barbells there. Lots of barbell UFOs. Okay. Here again, we have another petroglyph depiction. Have an orb there, and then we have this guy in the appeasement pose, right? He's looking up at this UFO in the sky, just like what we see in the skies today. Yeah, we'll get to the comments here before we get to the UFO sighting. I'll get to your guys' comments. So I'm trying to hurry up on this. Okay, this is on Holbrook Trail also. And so we have a spiral. Let's look at this. We have a spiral. We have this orb with a tail, right? He's entering the spiral doorway. We have another entity. We have an orb with a tail. They're all going down into these spirals here. We have this little coyote guy looking there. Have another coyote looking up at this orb UFO in the sky. And then look at this here. We have this chain of orbs. Some of them call them like worms or whatnot. And we have this bow tie. We've seen these bow tie UFOs in the skies also. Lots of spirals. And the CCC did their handiwork here. They blew up this story here. They don't want you to know any more about over here because they destroyed that story. They destroyed that story. In my last show, I talk about the CCC. We have another entity UFO here, and lots of. This is not a spiral. It's not connected together. So that would be like a pulsating light, if you will. When they pulsate, it's like the lights go, in, or out. And that's exactly, I believe, what they're trying to tell you here. Boom, boom, boom. That's what it's flickering. It's pulsating like we see the lights in the sky today. And we have these spiral doorways. So yeah, okay. That's a good glyph. My uh, One of my friends, Kevin Smith, I did a lot of radio show interviews on Kevin Smith's show. I took him out there on South Mountain, and this was his favorite petroglyph. He passed away some years ago, and this was his favorite petroglyph that he liked the most. And so Kevin Smith was a great guy, and he is missed truly. Every time I see that glyph, I think of him. Okay, this is on the east side of South Mountain, and we have the slabs of stone up here. This is an equinox and solstice marker. The sun will cast a shadow here and cut through this spiral snake here. See that? And again, look at this. This is Aztec or Mayan. See that? Look at how precisely it's cut. See that? The same exact type of spiral carvings we see on the pyramids of Mexico, right? So yes, the Mayans were here also. See that? Absolutely. That is one perfect example on how not only the Holocauns were here, but also the Mayans also. This is on the east side of South Mountain also. And again, we have the spirals. Well, actually, they're not spirals because they're not connected. See? So it's pulsating. They're pulsating. There is a dot in the middle. I talk about these dots in the middle of these orbs in my other shows. And here we go. And sometimes when you see a UFO in the sky, you'll see that dot in the middle, right? That's exactly what the Indians saw too, the Native Americans. This is on South Mountain too. Now look at this. Look at all these people looking up. And this symbol right here, this is an energy symbol right here. This is energy. Now all these people are waiting. They're looking up in the sky. I always like to photograph not only the rock art but the sky in the background because they're looking up into the sky. They're waiting. They're waiting for their spirits to come back. Okay, let me get to some of these comments real quick. Everybody's in the chat room. Thank you guys so much for watching. Okay. Yes, Jason. Yeah, the Flagstaff. Yeah, and the Hopi reservations. Yes. Oh. Lots of comments. Why is he worried? I'm worried because Nathan asks why am I worried? Because we must understand the past to understand the future. So we're seeing these UFOs in the skies today, much like the Holocaust did, and we're going over these petroglyphs. Look at this. Right here, the Phoenix Lights. Look at this. Perfect example. Look at this. The 1997 Phoenix Lights happening just didn't happen, back in 1997. This happened over 1,000 years ago. The exact same formation. Look at this. The exact same thing happened 1,000 years ago. The Holocaust were the first people to record this. This is a UFO sighting, right? Exactly what happened March 13, 1997. So this is a perfect example. So they saw the lights back then, right? They interacted. They went to step 2 and step 3. Okay, they interacted with these beings, and yet they came up missing from history. They were wiped out. A lot of people, misunderstand that, these UFOs. They think they're here to help us, and it's a good thing. And actually, it is kind of like a miracle. It just verifies all this other stuff that we read in some of these ancient scrolls and some of the like the Anastasia and the Anunnaki and stuff like that. All these things that we find, and when it's talking about these creatures from the sky, it's all backing up what the Holocom people are talking about. And it's all backing up on what happened to the first ancient people, the first ancient ones who interacted with these beings and then came up missing. And so, yeah, it just verifies that these things are here, they're real, and the history talks about it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. We see the things in the skies now. So what does that say about our future? What does it say about our future? If the Holocom people saw and recorded the lights and then they vanished, without a trace, and then now we're seeing the things in the sky, and we're only seeing stage 1. Stage 2 and stage 3 hasn't occurred yet. And they're waiting. They're waiting for mankind to need them once again. So let's just say that 2/3 of the earth has been destroyed, and there's no food and there's no water. The air is polluted, full of radiation, but yet they see the lights in the sky, and one light comes down and he anthropomorphs. He shape-shifts into a guy, into a likeness of a guy. And he's got these powers. And he says, I'm going to clean up the water. I'm going to clean up the air. I'm going to give you food. In return, worship me. I'm the one that you have been waiting for 3,000 years. And people, mankind at that time, will be forced to worship this false god in order to survive. Some would call him the Antichrist. See where I'm going with this? When you actually look at the facts and you understand these holy scriptures, these holy texts, and I'm not talking about religion. Let's get religion out of that. Religion is so much BS. Get religion out of there. When we look at these scrolls as a type of information, as a type of history of the world, it tells us what these beings are. It tells us what we see in the skies today are. Some are good. Absolutely. There are good ones in the sky. Don't get me wrong. I think what we're seeing now mostly are probably the bad ones. The ones that took the Holocom people away. And I'm going to give you a secret. These things don't die. These things, the lights that we see in the skies today are the exact same lights, the same ones that the Holocom people saw over 1,000 years ago. The exact same ones. And so, yes, some of these scrolls do tell us that the Great Spirit uses some of his, how should I word it? Some of his beings to help mankind back in the day. Look at that. Look at Moses, a pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night. Look at all that stuff, man. And it was a mountain, right? Moses went up on top of a mountain, light came down. And who was it that brought the people into the promised land? It wasn't Moses. He was taken away by a light. It was Aaron, who followed that thing in the sky. So basically, when we read the book of Numbers and we read the book of Exodus, it tells us basically that they followed a UFO in the sky for 40 days for many generations, right? For 40 years. And they went around in circles, right? To kill off the bad people. That's the reason why it took them so long to reach the promised land. And they walked around in circles, following that thing in the sky, is because there was a lot of bad generations in that flock that had to die out first before the good generation was able to enter the promised land. But that's a whole new story. But my point is that there are good ones out here. Unfortunately, some of the ones that we see in the skies now aren't the good ones. They are the ones that took these other tribes away in history. There's a lot of tribes out there in the world that were there. They were masters of their land for 1,000 years, and then they just came up missing. This just didn't happen in Phoenix. This happened around the world. Same type of story. What is the energy source? Nathan is asking. The energy is the fault line. The fault lines in the earth. That is the energy. This is why like sometimes like volcanoes, we'll see an orb go into that volcano, right? Because they're after that energy. Fault lines, yes. So yeah, so to understand, our future and understand these UFOs, we have to look at what the people before us, because they saw the exact same thing. They recorded their sightings. Look, 1997, March 13th. Why is the exact same type of sighting on a sacred mountain, on South Mountain, carved 1,000 years ago? This is nothing new. The Phoenix Lights and all these UFOs in our skies, doesn't matter, not around the world, has always been with us, So we have to understand the past. We just can't go and just, and take somebody's word for it. Oh, this Kraft came down and gave me a bottle of popcorn and told me to, raise his baby son in my closet, and I've got an alien baby in my closet. And I mean, come on, dude. There's so many stories out there, dude. And so we have to analyze everything. We have to look at the facts. And if something doesn't make sense, then it's not credible. But if we find evidence of the exact same orbs over dogs, over coyotes that we see in the skies today, right? I mean, that's a good step forward, dude, on what we really need to pay attention to. Don't you think? I mean, we have to learn from these people. And like I said before, the petroglyphs are meant for us. Our generation. Because I believe that it's our generation. Well, I'll get into that maybe on a later show. But right now, we need to understand what is here. And we have to understand the history of the Phoenix Lights. We have to understand the history of Phoenix, Arizona. We have to understand the history of where your people came from, your tribal ancestors, all the people that were here first. Obviously, it was their land before we got here, right? The indigenous people. I can't even say that. Indigenous people. Native Americans. Excuse me. Who better to know, to understand, to learn from what's going on now is from the people whose ancestors were here before us. And that's the thing, because they were taught from generation upon generation upon generation what these beings in the skies are. Remember I told you that I had a Native American shaman take me up there and teach me the petroglyphs, remember? He works at the Pueblo Indian Art Museum. His name is Dave Morris. Tell him Jeff Wilwine sent you. Tell him I said hi. I first discovered Dave Morris on a public access channel in Phoenix, Arizona. He was doing a tour on South Mountain. And he was talking about the petroglyphs on South Mountain. And one of the people that he was with turned around and says, that petroglyph, that stick-figured guy, looks like he's looking up at something in the sky. Just as this dog is. This dog is looking up at something. There's that pitchfork I'm talking about. Those are scary. Those pitchforks. Look at this. See? And Dave Morris turns around and says, yes, that's part of the interpretations here, is that our ancestors saw and recorded things in the sky on these rocks. This is in the beginning of 2004. I saw this. And this is like 10 years after the 1997 Phoenix Lights. And all these, researchers and and ufologists and all these people, right, been talking about the Phoenix Lights for 10 years, but not once have they mentioned anything about the petroglyphs on the mountains around the Valley of the Sun. So when Dave said that, I was like, wait a minute, hold the phone. We have strange lights in the sky. Now we have strange markings on the rocks out here. There has to be a connection. So in 2005, after I videotaped the lights, after I made the news, after I did an article for UFO Magazine, after I did the pilot for the UFO Hunter show, I ended up calling up Dave Morris, and I was like, dude, I saw you on Channel 8 last year talking about the glyphs. I really didn't tell him, what I was actually doing. I just said, I'm doing a documentary. I want you to teach me the petroglyphs, blah, blah. So we met up there, and we spent a good 2.5 hours up there on South Mountain. He went over the spirals and the giants and the lizard men and all this crazy stuff, right? He taught me all these petroglyph meanings, interpretations, and the Hohokam people. And when we got back down off the mountain, that's when I kind of sprung it on him. I was like, have you ever heard of the Phoenix Lights? And he's like, oh yeah, there's a guy on the news, a few months ago talking about these lights. And I was like, yeah, that was me. And I told him, I was like, I had this theory that the petroglyphs on the mountains out here has some kind of connection with the lights in the sky. Oops, that just killed it right there. He turned around, looked at me, and he shut up. He did not want to talk to me anymore. I tried to get him back up on the mountain to talk to me more about the petroglyphs. He won't do it. He won't answer my phone calls because I wanted to ask him. That was the first step. First step, I wanted to, him to teach me the glyphs and the second thing I wanted to ask him is why. Because I was raised in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've been seeing these orbs in the sky ever since I was a kid. That's what made me get into this. Is because everywhere I went, there was something in the sky. And I wanted to find out some answers. I wanted to know why. So that was my next question to him. Why am I seeing so many things in the sky? But he didn't let me get that far. He stopped talking to me. And that puzzled me. Why? Why was he all open and then all of a sudden, he meets somebody who's seeing the same things as the ancestors did, and so that was uh-oh. Until I did more research, right? I'm digging deeper, I'm digging in. About a year later, I understand why he doesn't want to talk to me anymore is because this is a taboo subject. This is a scary subject. Some of these Native Americans understand what's really going on here, and they're afraid because they know what happened to their ancestors. They know about the history. There's some, people out there that just go off the wall and, they claim that they have an alien in their closet and just off the wall topic. But the ones that you really want to get answers from are the ones that, will kind of step back and say, listen, what you want to know is, because it is scary. It's like I said before, I started off on this path thinking aliens, technology, it's a good thing. And then the evidence was taking me down another path saying, oh my God, what is going on here? And so the more and more I dug, the more and more I got answers, the more and more I was convinced, wait a minute, it's not this technology nuts and bolts here to help us. They're going to help mankind, but it's more of the history, man, and what happened to these people that dealt with these Phoenix Lights in the past, and why did they come up missing, and all the sacrificing and the altars, and oh my God, it was just all the evidence was going down this way, and now Dave, he doesn't want to talk to me no more, and some of the other I've talked to a lot of tribal leaders, and some of them, they don't want to talk to me. Some of them are just off the wall, just, Just crazy stuff. And then there's some that step back from me and they say, wait a minute, dude, you're seeing this? You saw this petroglyph in the sky? Ooh, it's heavy. It's heavy stuff. It's taboo. That's why. Because the history of the Phoenix Lights, the history of these things in the sky is not a very good one. And that's why they will never come out with this so-called disclosure. They're never going to tell you exactly what is here. The next conspiracy is spaceships, little green man, stuff like that. They're never going to tell you that this stuff could be biblical. That this stuff was, that these things, like I said before, live here. They were cast down. All this crazy stuff we read, especially like in Genesis. I mean, my God, dude. The petroglyphs, dude, we can read some of that stuff in Genesis, and then we can go out there on the rocks and we can see the photographs of what they are talking about. Now, that's scary. That is credible there. The stuff from the Anasazi, the stuff from the Babylonians. I mean, we can read and we can understand those texts and those scrolls and those depictions of carvings and their stories. And then we can come over here to the United States and we can see the exact same story carved on the rocks on some of these sacred mountains. Do you get where I'm coming from? That is where some of this credibility is coming from. So we have scrolls from over 2,000 to 3,000 to some 7,000 years ago. And we have the rock art depicting the exact same thing that we read from thousands of years ago. And then, to make it even more credible, we have our own eyes seeing the exact same thing of what the petroglyphs are talking about and what the ancient scrolls are talking about. Now, we have to look at all this, put all of this in motion here, and look at what we can prove. Look at the history of this. That's why. That's why there will never be a disclosure. That's why they locked up South Mountain. They will never let you go in there and dig up those tombs. Because what happens if you go in there and dig up a tomb and you pull out, a giant skeleton, or you pull out, some kind of Aztec god gold, or if you pull out some kind of thing proving that this is a completely different story on what the archaeologist wants you to believe. And that's it. That's it right there. They buried this information for 80 years. See the orb? Okay. This is interesting too here. See, we have a snake. And look at that. Look at that crazy stuff there. Then we have this lizard guy there looking up in the sky. He's looking up in the sky. Okay, so I've gone way over time. Let's get into these UFO sightings. Now, this right here, this sighting was filmed, what did I say? In Casa Grande? Yeah, Casa Grande last week. This is great stuff. Look at this. Here we go. Oh, what I do. No, what happened? Did it just disappear? Okay. All right, let's look at this one. I'll see if I can get that other one up real quick. I think I deleted it on accident. I don't know what happened. Okay. All right, here we go. Look at this. Look at this thing here. This happened in Casa Grande last week. The person who filmed this did a great job filming this. Look at this orb. And look how it's going in a perfect line. See that? See how it's passing? Look at that. Absolutely incredible stuff. See that? And then see that dot in the middle there? You can barely see that dot in the middle. Absolutely. This is the stuff that we want to look for. And a lot of people would think, "Oh, this is a flying saucer. This is a craft." This is not a spaceship. This is a living being. Let's see if I can stop this real quick. Boop. Stop. Boop. Look at that. Absolutely. Great stuff. Great video. Casa Grande last week. Casa Grande, Arizona. Oh, and it's interesting too because when the Mayans look, let's see, we can stop that again. Let's see if I can stop that. Let's back this up. That was a very good point I wanted to bring up. If I can get it just right. Stop. Stop. Oh, I think I messed it up. Try it again. Something that I want to point out real quick. Now look, remember how I was talking about the petroglyphs on how it was a circle within a circle within a circle? This is what I'm talking about here. You see that? A circle within a circle within a circle. See that? Let's see if I can. See how it's pulsating? Look. Boom. Boom. Oh, I just missed it again. That is what I'm talking about when it comes to these. Look, there we go. Look at that. See? Now, that looks exactly like the petroglyphs that we were looking at earlier. With the circle within a circle within a circle. You see that? Same stuff. Petroglyphs in the sky. Great, great video. Awesome video. This is great stuff. Look at that. Look how it's on a mission. See? It's going in a straight line. Nathan asked, do you think they come from another dimension? Well, that's a good question. It's possible that, yeah, they come and go through other dimensions. Now, is it like our dimension? Or is it from like another world or whatever? That's still up in the air on that. Right now, the evidence tells us that they live here, that this is their world also, that they were here before mankind. Now, are they able to travel to other worlds? Yes. I've seen the exact same lights, the exact same orbs, the exact same snakes in photographs of, Europa and some of these other moons. Or other energy sources, especially Mars, these lights over Mars and stuff like that. So, yes, I believe that they are able to travel outside of the Earth. Are they able to go in through dimensions? They come in the sky through a vortex. So they're coming from somewhere, right? So, yes, it's very possible that they're coming in from another dimension, right? I would agree with that until we find, until there's evidence to suggest that it's not. I'm open to it. Yeah, why not? Sure. It's very possible they could be coming from another dimension. What dimension? Who knows? Are they time travelers? Maybe they're coming from a different time. Maybe. So that is still yet to be, looked into. There needs to be more study. Right now, like I said before, the evidence is suggesting that they have always been here. This is their planet too. This is their world. So this is their home. Let me see if I can get this other video up that I accidentally deleted. So let me work on this for a minute, because that was good stuff too. There was 2 sightings. One happened at 9, and then one happened like around 12:30. So just go ahead and and check out this sighting for a while I find this other sighting. Okay, let's see. Oh, come on, come on, come on. There we go. Yeah, I think Nephilim spirits, yes, absolutely. The story with the Nephilim are the exact. It's the exact same story, absolutely. You know, it's talking about the giants. These things. You know, there's lots of petroglyphs. You know, depicting giants, and they got the orbs in them. That one orb, that one petroglyph that I was showing earlier, where I said there could be a tomb behind this brick wall right there, or this brick block. There's an orb and then a giant, right? So yeah, you know, and there's petroglyphs that are huge. They're huge of these so-called lizard men, and they got the orb in the middle, the orb in the body. And he's anthropomorphing. He's shape-shifting into a man or into a being, and he's huge compared to a little stick figure man on the bottom. So yeah, very, very, very possible that this is the Nephilim that we are dealing with. Okay, here we go. This is the video that I accidentally deleted, I believe. Okay, yeah, here we go. And look at this. This is great. See, there was 2 sightings that night. Yeah, look at that. See how it's moving in a straight line? I believe this is... Let's just get both videos playing at the same time, so you don't get confused on which is which, because they both look very similar. Alright, let me get the other one in. Yeah, so this was... Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't remember seeing that bike. So yeah, this is the second video. And let's get into the next one. Okay. Alright, so now we're looking at both videos here. And both was taken in Casa Grande in both different times. So one was taken around 9 or 9:30, and the other one was taken around 12:30. So I'm not sure which is which. I contacted the person who filmed these, and they didn't get back to me. So there's not a lot of info on this. I just know that this was filmed last week, both in Casa Grande, and one was 9 o'clock, 9:30, and one was 12:30, around those times. So yeah, let's just check these out. These are great video. Portholes, yes, hi Heather, absolutely, portholes, spirals, tunnels, other dimensions, absolutely. Nathan asked me about the pitchforks. So the pitchforks, I found a lot of petroglyphs out there depicting these pitchforks, and those are the ones that were like picking up the people. So it's like when we look at some of these petroglyphs, I talk about it in past shows, especially with the lizard men. It's got, when you look at like the bottom half, it's got, you know, 2 legs and a tail. That's a pitchfork. So don't look at the body, don't look at the arms and the head. Just look at the bottom, the legs and the tail. That is a pitchfork. And so yeah, there's a lot of pitchfork carvings out there, and that line is picking people up and taking them up into the sky. So, you know, a lot of people, when they go out there and they look at these UFOs, or they're hunting UFOs, or they see something in the sky, they automatically dismiss it as a balloon, okay? Because they think they see a string. So we all know what balloons look like, right? We all know how they act. We all know, you know, how they blow in the wind, and they're not in control. And yeah, sometimes you can see the string, and the knot is going circling, and the string is circling, blah blah. You know, so a lot of people, when they see a real entity in the sky, a real UFO in the sky, they think it's a balloon because they see this line coming down from it. So they automatically think it's a string. In past shows, I show plenty of petroglyphs depicting an orb with a line coming down from the orb. Now, a lot of people would think, oh, that's a balloon, right? So why would the whole people be carving balloons 1,000 years ago when balloons didn't exist back then? And it wasn't very, you know, I mean, who cares about a balloon, right? So they don't want to keep that written down in history. So these orbs, like I said, they shapeshift. They go on stage 2. They start anthropomorphing, and they grow these tails. They grow the arms. They grow the legs. They grow this tail. And a lot of Native American folklore or legends on these petroglyphs talk about lizard people, lizard men, and because of that tail, all right. But that tail is actually a being. It's a creature. It's an anthropomorph. It's a UFO to us. It's a UAP to us. And that tail is used not only to pick people up, but also to pick animals up also. Have I seen the pitchforks UFOs? I don't believe so. That's like in stage 2. I have seen a stage 2 before. My wife and I, Pam, we were out there on South Mountain, and this bright light in the sky, this is during the day, this light appeared in the sky, and out come this light, came this black serpent, and my wife is freaking out. She's got the binoculars. Oh, it's a snake, it's a snake. And the snake anthropomorphed. It shaped into a stick figure man. He was a stick figure man, had his hands on his waist, and he had what looked like two antennae up on his head there. That is a stage 2. He anthropomorphed. He shape shifted. That's a stage 2. That's what I call stage 2. And so yeah, I actually seen a pitchfork? No. In the sky, I've seen a lot of depictions of the petroglyphs of the pitchforks, and they're basically taking people away, taking people up. So that's why, one of my other shows, I really go in depth with the pitchfork, and so yeah. Okay, any other questions? Oh my God, how long? We've been doing this for almost 2 years. Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I've filmed a lot of serpents over the years. So that Quetzalcoatl one, it's on the front page of my website there. That was pretty intense, and I'm glad that Pam was able to witness that. And it was neat the way it came out of that light. There was just like a light of the sky, and then that serpent came out of the light. So that was pretty crazy. And I've seen other red and black serpent that came out of the Valley Canyon on South Mountain and climbed 1,000 feet and then came over my head. And that was pretty crazy. That thing was a serpent. That was alive. And then Easter Sunday, look at my videos, Easter Sunday, where this long worm was up there. And it was kind of neat, too, because this contrail, this jet with this contrail was going across the sky. And as this UAP, this entity, came up close to that contrail, it actually mimicked. It went into a straight line, looked like a cigarette, and it was right under that contrail, looking exactly like that contrail. Okay, is there any other questions? Because when they get taken. Oh, my videos? Oh my God. So over the years, you just have to go back on my website and also on my my YouTube channel, the Phoenix Lights Petroglyphs in the Sky. So yeah, in order to categorize some of my sightings, I'll call it like the Crooked Snake UFO or the Serpent UFO or Quetzalcoatl or Easter Sunday, stuff like that, because I have hundreds and hundreds of UFO sightings. And so many to keep up with, and I don't remember the dates and stuff like that. But I just remember what it represents, So petroglyphs in the sky, man. So I call it, a worm or a serpent, or if it happened on a specific date, like Christmas or Thanksgiving or something, or Easter Sunday, I call it Easter Sunday UFO. So yeah. All right, man. I'm gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. And if you guys have any other questions, message me on Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Phoenix Lights Petroglyphs in the Sky. And also, please check out my Haunted Encounter Adventures page. And so, yeah, that's really cool. We go out there and lots of cool things, lots of good videos on there. I'm pretty sure you'll like it. And so, yeah, so The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky. Go out there and pick up my book, The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. I don't get any money for the books. I told the publishers to give my profits to the foster kids in Phoenix. So I don't make any money off of this. It's all, just information that I feel that needs to be, brought up because it's been buried for 80 years. And there's a lot of research into this. I don't make any money. And so it's all, all my dedication and passion. And I just love all this. And I wanted some answers. I wanted to find out what was going on. And I believe I found some credible evidence here on what's actually here. And so I'm presenting what I've discovered to you. And that's basically what it's all about. So it's not about money. It's not about fame and fortune, Dr. Jones. It's about getting this information to you and into your hands. So yeah, The Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky, Landscape for the Spirits, True Stories, Myths, Legends, and UFOs over Phoenix. Bye, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. See